Schizophrenia. What is schizophrenia besides a very long word that's difficult to spell? Well, is it somebody who's completely divorced from reality with multiple personalities? No. It's people such as Ellen Sachs, who are notable writers and amazing people who have talked about their own journey through madness, oftentimes. Ellen Sachs is an amazing lady who has talked on TED Talks, and she also is a professor of law and has gone to some of the best institutions in the world when it comes to education. Then there's also John Nash of A Beautiful Mind fame. His story was based on his life story, A Beautiful Mind, written by Sylvia Nassar. An amazing story, a very inspiring one. So why is it inspiring? Why is it inspiring that somebody who did develop schizophrenia was an inspiring personage? In 1994, he received the Nobel Prize for economics as a result of his work on n-person game theory, which looks like this. Most of us would be very basically taken aback or scared by math like this, but he created it. He invented it. Game theory has nothing to do with chemistry. And then this guy, A Schizophrenic Will, A Story of Madness, A Story of Hope. William Jiang, Master of Library Science. He basically went to Stuyvesant High School in New York City, which was the #1 school there. Then he went to Stony Brook University, which is like a public Ivy. Then he went to Queens College, became a Master of Library Science. Then he became a professor over at Kingsborough Community College, ending his professional library career at New York State Psychiatric Institution and Columbia Psychiatry. So what is this guy doing now? Hey, it's me, the guy narrating this little strip. So I've authored 26 books as of this point, including Natural Weight Loss and Diabetes Control. That one I authored because a lot of people who take the very strong medications develop diabetes, and I wanted to help them fight that, because we die on average about 25 years younger than the average population. In my little autobiography, which you saw already, A Schizophrenic Will, A Story of Madness, A Story of Hope, which I encourage everybody to read. Then there's Guide to Natural Mental Health, which deals with anxiety, bipolar depression, schizophrenia, and digital addiction, which is a term I actually coined. Nutrition and complementary therapies, which is doing quite well as well. But it's basically a lot of stuff that you can do to protect your mental health if you don't have any issues, or if you do have an issue, you can basically make it a little bit better. And that isn't that what we all want? And little table of contents, stuff like that. Good stuff. And so beyond me, what is schizophrenia? So we've passed the part of personages. So schizophrenia is a non-specific. Okay, so Emil Kraepelin in 1887 actually coined the term dementia praecox, which came to be known as schizophrenia. And he was the first to make a distinction in the psychotic disorders from dementia, praecox, and manic depression. So, and that was in 1887. I highly recommend Jeffrey Lieberman's book, the former president of the American Psychiatric Association, Shrinks, The Untold Story of Psychiatry. He goes into great detail into a whirlwind of stories from psychiatry, as only somebody who is deeply immersed in the field can do. Then here we see Google Books. If you read German, you can read Psychiatry by Emil Kraepelin, and he published this in 1899, about 20 years after he made the distinction between the dementia praecox and the other dementias, psychoses. So 1 in 100 people have schizophrenia, right? 1 in 100. You would think that because it's in the genetic code, at least in part, it would be weeded out of the population by now. But no. Think about this. When 1 in 2 twins develop schizophrenia, the other twin will not. And we're talking about the identical twins. So basically their genetic code is exactly the same. And so if it were completely a genetic disease, then there would be 100% rate of schizophrenia between identical twins. However, it's only 50%. So it seems to be 50% caused by the environment and 50% caused by genetics, something like that. This is my little blog, Mental Health Books. And if you do want to educate yourself a little bit more about schizophrenia, I recommend this list of books that I curated, best books about schizophrenia. So there's my little thing, Ellen Sachs, great story. The Day the Voices Stopped, an important book by Kenneth Steele. He really just inspiring and amazing what he went through. And then Mark Vonnegut's story, Just Like Someone with Mental Illness, only more so. An amazing story. A Mind That Found Itself, an autobiography by Clifford Whittington Beers. He basically started NAMI, the National Institute of Mental Health, the National Association for the Mentally Ill. And before him, there was really nothing to support people like us. Then A Beautiful Mind, Endgame, Bobby Fischer's Remarkable Rise and Fall. So Bobby Fischer, the chess genius, it turns out seemed to have some kind of paranoia going on. And there's a whole lot of other great stuff here. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. So back in the 1960s was when the antipsychotics came out of the medical avenues. And basically around here, 1960s, is where we had the most people dealing with schizophrenia in the entire time. So over here is really the rate where you have people with schizophrenia. Then over the 60s, people get deinstitutionalized until about 2000. And over here, it's even lower. We don't have enough beds for people with severe mental issues right now. However, as you can see, incarceration rates are way up, in part because people fall between the cracks and then they end up in jail. So jails being the de facto inhumane and horrible places that they are, especially for people with severe mental illnesses. So the jails have become the asylums, de facto asylums of the 21st century. It's crazy. But there are organizations that are trying to help us, such as the National Institute of Mental Health, Mental Health America, NAMI, which was started by Clifford Beers, Clubhouse International, a great place for finding community. But yeah, speaking of deinstitutionalization and speaking of therapies that got people out of the asylums, we have to talk about drugs. So the biggest drug ever in the history of drugs was Abilify, right? So Abilify in 2012 made over $3 billion in 2012 dollars, right? About over $2 billion in the United States and almost $1 billion outside of the United States. So that is, and it's gone off patent, so it's really not making so much money these days. So, but that was the past. Intracellular Therapies is working on a drug called ITI-007, which I believe will be the first third generation antipsychotic that basically will help people a lot, hopefully. So I got in over here at 24. I wrote an article about ITI-007, which you can find on mentalhealthbooks.net. And I got in here, so I've doubled my money at this point. So that's good. I'm happy about that. Beyond the humanitarian aspect of things. But if you're not getting adequate treatment, I highly recommend clinicaltrials.gov. If you've tried everything and nothing seems to work, Treatment does work for most people, so I recommend going with treatment. But if nothing works, definitely clinicaltrials.gov could be of help. Then there's, to inform yourself, in New York City, there's Behavioral Health News, which is quite a good publication, especially for mental health providers. There is also, on my little website, I highlight City Voices, which is New York City's oldest and largest mental health newspaper. So I'm bringing it up. And so it's got everything from art to culture to political news to a whole great amount of things. And we definitely miss Mr. Marvin Spieler. May he rest in peace. He was a great big force behind City Voices and its history. So Mad in America, there are people that tell you that out there, such as Robert Whitaker, that there's bad science, bad medicine, and the enduring mistreatment of the mentally ill. Mr. Whitaker does not believe in medication therapy, it seems, for the schizophrenias. But that is very odd when you look at over here, when there were no medications for mentally ill people, well, like, especially the schizophrenia, people with schizophrenia, like, yeah, I mean, like, basically that, you know, the medicines got people out and some freedom. It's not like these people didn't exist and people just got better all by themselves. So I fundamentally disagree with Mr. Whitaker that, yeah, that like a mental illness is imaginary and whatever. So no bueno. Then again, there's my little page, these are all my books. I just want to show you real quick. Okay, come on, let's go. That's good. And that's about it. So I wanted to say thank you so much for checking out my little corner of YouTube. And if you have schizophrenia, remember, there is hope with treatment. If you do not have schizophrenia, but a loved one or someone you care about does have it, make sure they try to get the best treatment for them, because schizophrenia is a very difficult disease to deal with. And God bless and take care.